So with the new season has come new characters, and as of right now, there's not a single one of them that I don't actually like. They're all kind of amazing in their own way. But even among all these amazing characters, there sits one that has quickly taken over the hearts of almost every single one of us that has watched Arcane Season 2. And that of course is Isha. Isha is the street urchin kid that almost instantly imprints herself onto Jinx, when she both saves her from the fall as well as the big brutes that were chasing after her. But I'm not here to recap to all of you what we saw with Isha in the show. I'm here to ask and answer 3 possible questions that I and many of you have likely had over the last 24 hours with these 3 episodes having dropped. These questions are: who exactly is Isha? What's her role in the story and in Jinx's life? And how does Arcane both use and establish these kids in the series to develop the mostly unredeemable characters? Because this is something we have seen used in not only the last 3 episodes of Season 2, but also something we have seen throughout the entirety of Season 1, with Vander and his kids as well as with Silco and Jinx. For you see, I believe the kids of Arcane are almost used to present an already developed character, another possible direction, or another life of sorts. So with that thought in mind, I want to deep dive into this topic and hopefully learn a thing or two about the way Arcane uses kids to both shift the perspective and the direction for its mostly villainous characters. So with that said, let's begin with who exactly is this new adorable character named Isha. Now Isha, like I briefly explained earlier, enters the show as a scared, cowardly child running away from some no-good thugs. This is of course believed to be because she's a poor orphan child who was likely stealing from their place of work in order to feed herself. Now immediately, almost just after she gets entered into the show, she is presented with an option which on the surface didn't seem like much of an important decision to make, but one that once I went back and watched it, seemed to come up quite a lot in the entire episode, and was a decision that I believe showed us something very important about her character, and something that will most definitely come up later in the video again. So let me just touch on it here for just a second. She's presented with this choice to make the leap or turn around and deal with the man behind her. Now, if we re-look at this situation, we can take this choice to mean something different. It's a choice to risk everything for a chance of living, or an option to turn around and likely die. It's a choice between life and death. And remember, this came just a couple of seconds after she entered the show. And it's also a choice that I've seen come up a number of times in this very same episode, episode 2. Now, Isha's choice to jump instantly establishes her as someone who wants to live, rather than someone who's willing to die. And as we see just 1 episode later, this exists in total opposition to what Jinx wants at this very moment. Jinx wants Vi to finish her off and subsequently end her misery, choosing to die rather than to live. But we'll touch more on that in just a second, because I want to go back briefly and talk about the scene that comes next for Isha, and that's the interaction between her, Jinx, and the brutes. Now first off, Jinx deciding to help her in this situation seemed a little off to me and almost out of character for her. But then once I rewatched it, I realized that Jinx killing the goons here wasn't to aid the girl in any way, and was just more of her trying to get them out of her own way. Because she realized right away that they knew exactly who she was, and they were likely going to turn her in as a result. So in true Jinx fashion, she saw it easier to just get rid of them, rather than try to talk her way out of it. Now alternatively, Isha saw this as Jinx saving her life, which again ties us back to when she risked her life to save Jinx against Vi in episode 3. But again, we'll get back to that in just a second. Now following this minor fight with the goons, Isha decides to tag along with Jinx, either for protection or just out of some idealization of her strength and wanting to learn from her. I'm not 100% sure on which of these it is at this moment, but I'm tending to lean more towards the protection side of things. Now fast forward just a bit and we see the child hiding in the same bin pipe that Powder once used to gather materials for her creations. Which now, don't get me wrong, could be nothing more than a coincidence, but I think it's more of Arcane's subtle way of hinting that there's a connection to be found between Isha and Powder. Which of course leads me to one of the main possibilities for the role of Isha going forward with Jinx. And that's essentially the role as almost Jinx's salvation. For you see, prior to Vander meeting and adopting both Vi and Powder, he was in a lot of ways almost identical to Jinx as of right now. He wanted to watch Piltover burn. He wanted war and death to all that stood against him. But it wouldn't be until after meeting the girls that he would decide to leave all that behind. Now Isha, in my opinion, offers this chance to Jinx. Jinx, who at this moment has nothing left and wants the world to burn. She can potentially achieve this peace and love from this child. Or alternatively, and this is what I believe will happen, is that as she establishes some level of love for the child will likely be killed as yet another reaction to one of Jinx's many decisions. Now you just know right away that if this actually happens, that's it for any minor piece of powder that may still remain in Jinx. Jinx will be all that's left. And that will also mean the end for Piltover and the Undercity. Jinx will, as episode 2 is titled, burn the world down. But now just moving away from that for a second, I want to take a look at Sevika and Smeech's fight. Or more specifically, the part played from Isha in this fight. It's the part where Isha finds and uses Jinx's whisker bombs to help Jinx in the fight. Now this is actually an incredibly subtle moment. But again, like the bin pipe scene, takes me back to when Powder used her own bombs against that one tug that day by the water. This scene and this moment felt so much like a callback in connection to that moment that we've seen in episode 1 of season 1. Which again almost helps push the agenda that Isha and Powder are connected in some way or another. Now again, I just want to jump ahead to episode 3 and the scene where we see Isha run and save the person who she now sees as a big sister figure in her life, Jinx. Isha grabs Jinx's gun and immediately gets herself between Fi and Jinx, and points Jinx's gun at Fi as a warning not to move a muscle. She puts her own life on the line for Jinx in this situation, and what's amazing about it is it actually elicits a reaction of worry from Jinx herself. We can see in that moment that Jinx has developed a minor connection to this character. One that's also evidently deeper than just some random fondness. She actually cares about the life of this child in this moment. So much so that the girl that never knows when to shut up can't even bring herself to say a single word in this moment. And this is exactly what I love about this character. Her silence speaks volumes, and her actions throughout the entire 2 episodes that she's in are just perfect examples of actions speaking louder than words. She's aided Jinx by both throwing her whisker bomb earlier in episode 2, and then now saved her life by risking her own. And all this while never once in any of the episodes uttering a single word. Her actions have become her voice. And honestly, that's what makes her character so goddamn mesmerizing. Now we then get to see that the child was actually willing to go through with killing Fi to protect Jinx. And again, this showcases 1, her willingness to fight and live, and 2, her feelings for Jinx. She cares so deeply about her in this moment that she's willing to both kill or be killed just to keep Jinx alive. It's honestly kind of beautiful in a really fucked up kind of way. But then when it comes to the gun getting shot out of her hands, she doesn't just panic and go for cover. No, she uses all that she's got left to help Jinx, her own body. She shields Jinx from any potential attack at that moment, saying through her own actions that if you want to get to her, you've got to go through me. Like, are you beginning to see why I love this character so much? She's just so damn perfect, it's actually unreal. Like, to go through 2 entire episodes, never once saying a word, but somehow still becoming one of the most important characters in both episodes, just shows how important an action can be over the choice of using words. Because sure, throughout Arcane there's a number of these characters that are great at manipulation through words, but there's now a character that shows that you don't need words to manipulate your way into the hearts of the viewers. Isha is potentially the best character in Arcane, and honestly at this point in time I just can't wait for that second act. I really want to see how this character develops going forward, because if she remains on this path, then she could potentially become my all-time favorite character in all of fiction. That's just how much I really love and admire this new character. But now to get back on topic, to answer the question that I had at the beginning, who is Isha? Well, to me, she's the representation of the last remaining part of Powder that exists inside Jinx. I believe if given half the chance and a different circumstance, Isha could very well become Jinx's salvation. But again, given the war around them, I can't help but feel as though she's going to become the final straw that once pulled, brings everything crashing down around Jinx. I think Isha represents the last remaining piece of sanity in Jinx's mind, and without her around, Jinx is just going to run rampant around the city and potentially destroy everything. But now with all of that said, I ask you, what do you think of Isha as a character? Is she going to be the salvation or ruin of Jinx? Or is she something different altogether? Tell me all that down below in the comments, and while you're there, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It would really help me out a lot, and I would really appreciate you doing so. But now with all of that out of the way, I hope you all have a great day or night wherever you are, and peace.